What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning back into Scorpio TV once again. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022, where we're going to be making way better choices, way better decisions, and our lives are going to be getting way better. A lot more success coming our way. Positive thinking, positive things tend to happen. So, we have Broccoli Animations 3 New Year 2022 Horror Stories Animated, uploaded December 28th, 2021. Now, y'all already know all the important links are down in the description, so without further ado, let's get into it.
The new year was always celebrated in my family as a time that we'd put all our mistakes behind us and start fresh without any regrets.
Right.
Of course, that was the case until I was 17. I never really told anyone about what happened, so this is the first time people from outside my close-knit friend group would hear the story. Without wasting any time, let's go back to when I was 17. My name's Brian, and my best friends were Jackson and Liam. We've been close ever since we were babies, and our families were also friends. We lived close to each other, making it easier to spend a lot of our time together.
Good shit.
At
Kool-Aid.
16, we got our driver's license, and immediately after that, our parents bought each of us cars. I know, we were privileged, and maybe since our families had money, you would think much less of us. But remember, we were just kids, and what happened, well, it haunts us even to this day. Hey man, finally I got my license. I thought I'm gonna fail again, Liam said as he came to us in the DMV parking lot with a wide grin on his face. Me and Jackson already got ours, but he failed a couple of times before he succeeded.
I'm saying.
Yeah, dude, finally, that M3 was just sitting there in your garage, I told him before he agreed. His family had a lot of money, way more than mine or Jackson's. And while the two of us received normal, everyday cars, Liam was gifted something that he would never dream of. Get ready, because tonight we're gonna tear up the streets, he said. Anyway, we went home. The day went on, and at exactly 8 p.m., I hear a car horn in the front of my house. I looked out the window, and there it was. Liam's M3 in that beautiful blue color.
Looks like a Chevy Cruze.
Come on! He yelled. I could spot Jackson in the back seat. I didn't know how to get out of the house quick enough. I grabbed my jacket since it was right after Christmas when this happened, and the weather was merciless. I hopped in the car and off we went. The small town in which we lived was kind of in the middle of nowhere. Liam stepped on the gas, and before I knew it, we were at the edge of town. No streetlights in sight. So even if we saw the road clearly, the area around us was engulfed with darkness. You sure you should be driving so fast? I said while holding on to the seat. Don't worry, this thing has a million safety features on it. We're gonna be fine, Liam responded as he looked straight ahead.
Yes, Cap.
The good thing was that on that road, the traffic was always light, especially at night. And if we did manage to skid off the road, we would just stop in the field. No real danger crossed my mind.
What?
Hey, let's stop here and celebrate, Liam said. He pulled over on the side of the road. It was pitch black around us. Jackson then got out of the car and popped the trunk.
What?
Here, catch, he told me before throwing a can of beer. We hung out there for a while.
Damn.
I believe it was about an hour. After we finished 2 beers each, we went back home. Let's see what she can really do, Liam told us. He pushed the gas and the car almost started flying. It was a sensation I'll never
So their
forget.
eyes turn bright
But
red
out of the blue,
after getting drunk?
a loud thud followed by the sound of screeching tires. What the hell was that? I asked while turning my head toward Liam. He had both of his hands on the wheel. He didn't say anything, but he was breathing heavily. We were all quiet until the driver spoke. I think I hit something.
No
The
shit.
two of us didn't say anything, still being in shock. But Jackson said after a couple of seconds, saying that it might just be a rabbit. He saw it crossing the road. Me and Liam weren't so sure. We kept driving. Upon arriving in his driveway, we saw that the front bumper was cracked. Oh man, my dad's gonna kill me! It could have happened to anyone. Relax, I said. Then, after about 10 minutes, we all went to our houses. Fast forward, and it was December 31st, New Year's Eve. We were all gathered at Liam's house, including our parents. The three of us went into his room to play some video games until 12 a.m. We were about 1 hour in when the console suddenly turned off. Liam got up to go see what happened to it. As he approached it, the TV screen went completely red. It was so bright that our eyes started hurting. I managed to keep them open for a few seconds, and I thought I saw something. But before I knew it, the TV also turned off. Did you see that? It looked like a face in the TV, I told the two. See what? That brightness was turned up to 1,000. Liam, you better get rid of that stupid TV, Jackson replied. The console then started all on its own, and we started playing. As I was winning, the controller began to feel hot. I noticed it, but I just assumed that I'm imagining things. Another 5 minutes passed, and it started to smell like something was burning. Ah! I said while dropping the controller. Liam, your controller is on fire. What's wrong with your electronics? I said. He picked it up and dropped it on the floor 1 second later. As we were trying to figure out why it was overheating, we heard his mom on the other side of the door saying that it's almost midnight and they'll all go into the backyard. It's midnight already? Leave this piece of plastic. We'll deal with it later, Liam said, and we all headed toward the door. But it was locked. We pulled on the doorknob as hard as we could. It didn't open. He then went towards the window, trying to tell everyone that the door was locked and we couldn't get out. But as soon as he approached the window, it closed all on its own, nearly closing on his neck on the way down. Liam took a few steps back. The lights began to flicker. We were all freaking out. A soft murmur could be heard all around the room. It seemed the sound was coming from everywhere. Well, what's happening, guys? I asked them, but they were as confused as me. The murmur got louder and louder until we could understand what it was saying.
From whatever you hit.
Why didn't you stop? Why didn't you stop? Why didn't you stop? Why didn't you stop? Suddenly, it got so loud, it covered our ears. The repeating phrase was digging in our brains. Jackson started to scream, but it was no match for the voice that was asking us why we didn't stop. The light bulb broke into many pieces.
Damn.
One of them hit me in the face, and I started to bleed. The noise eventually stopped. We were relieved, and then there was silence. But of course, it didn't last long. That scream made us all lose our consciousness and faint.
What?
But before we did, I could see a man's shadow standing in the corner of the room. We woke up after 12 a.m. when his mom came into the room. What happened? Jackson said as he got up from the floor. The two of us followed. We had no explanation for what had happened. Since then, we think about it every New Year's Eve. And the question remains, did we hit a person that night when we were 17?
Yeah. That voice was funny.
5, 4,
Rather than
3,
scary.
2, 1. Happy New Year! Everyone chorused. My fiance kissed me deeply, and I giggled when we pulled apart, grateful to be spending the new year with someone I loved. My parents were in New Orleans, while I was in a little town in Boston. I was the only child, and I knew it hurt them not to have me around as often as it used to be. Greg and I have been together for 7 months now, and I have never regretted meeting him. We left the town square where people were still celebrating the beginning of a new year. All I wanted to do was to make love with him and sip some hot chocolate. I leaned over and whispered my plans into Greg's ear. He grinned at me before saying to no one in particular that we had to leave.
Shit, free.
Since we lived about 15 minutes away from the square, I kept my hands to myself, reminding myself that we would soon get home. Greg parked the car in the driveway and we both hurried out.
My man.
In our haste, we didn't notice the scooter that was parked beside the hedge of flowers.
Really?
Greg unlocked the door and we headed inside with our arms roaming each other's bodies. The sound of glass breaking broke us apart. "What was that?" I whispered, my eyes wide. Greg shook his head and mumbled that he didn't know. I hoped it was just the wind knocking something over. I bit my lip as Greg went to check the source of the noise. I watched him disappear into the kitchen, and there was the sound of a scuffle. I ran to the kitchen, scared for Greg. When I got to the kitchen, I saw Greg lying down on the floor with a bloody lip. I went to the sink and brought back a wet towel to help with the swelling. I asked Greg what happened, and he said that there was someone in the house with us. He didn't get to see the intruder's face, but he was sure that it was a man. I swallowed audibly and cursed when I remembered that my phone was in the living room. I stood up to grab my phone so I could call the cops. I didn't want to leave Greg, but I had no choice. I heard the front door locking, and I couldn't help the scream that tore out of me. Greg shushed me, and he grabbed my hand and led me to the store in the kitchen. He put off the light and held me close. I felt his heart thudding, and my legs began to shake. If Greg was scared, then it meant that something terrible was going on. "Come out wherever you are," a man's voice said. His voice was deep and guttural, and it only managed to heighten the fear in me. He came into the kitchen and went out when he didn't see anyone. I didn't know how he didn't notice the storage room where Greg and I were hiding. Greg placed a hand over my mouth when sounds began to find their way out of my throat. The man continued to talk, saying that we were the ones that brought this upon ourselves. He said he only wanted to steal a couple of things so he could celebrate the new year, but we just had to come home early.
Yeah, how dare we come to our own
house if we had only stayed back.
Goofy.
"Now I will teach you a lesson." He laughed maniacally.
Goofy.
Greg's body stiffened behind me, and he left the store in a rage. I tried to pull him back, but he shrugged me off and opened the drawer. He picked out a large knife just as the intruder came inside the kitchen because of the ruckus that Greg was making.
Oh, yeah.
Shrouded in darkness, I was able to see the intruder's face
What's with
clearly.
these red-ass
He was
eyes?
a large man with a bulging chest. He had a gun extended in his hand as he came inside the kitchen. Greg threw the knife straight at the man, and I watched in horror as it sank into his chest. His eyes were wide open from the shock, and he leaned back as if trying to do a stretch. His body dropped on the floor, and I knew he was dead. Greg was panting hard, and he wiped the sweat off his brow. "Patricia, you can come out now," he said. My legs were like jelly as I made my way to the crime scene. Greg just committed murder, and he was acting too calm about it.
That's
"You
self-defense.
killed him," I whispered,
And?
as if saying it out loud would change it.
He's in our house.
Greg retorted that the man would have killed us, and we were only acting in self-defense.
My man.
He told me not to worry, and he would take care of everything. He dialed the police and explained everything to them while I sat on one of the kitchen stools staring into the distance. Soon enough, there was a knock on our door, and Greg ushered 2 cops inside.
Black cop.
I asked
Hey.
why we didn't hear their sirens, and they glanced at each other before saying they didn't want to spread panic because this was January 1st and people should be celebrating. I nodded and thought that they had a point. Greg explained everything to them, and I was surprised that they believed him so easily. I thought they would dig further. They got our statements and carried out the body. Greg slept peacefully beside me as I tossed and turned, the image of a dead man still fresh in my head. When I managed to sleep, I was jarred awake by a nightmare that showed me the rotting face of the intruder. The nightmares continued, and I could hardly keep anything together. About 2 weeks later, I decided to start gardening since I wasn't leaving that house. I saw something online about building your own irrigation system, and I wanted to try it out. Greg had gone to work, so I knew I would be able to work without distraction. As I dug with my spade, it connected with something hard. I smiled. A little part of me thought that I'd discovered treasure. I cleared out the sand and screamed as the face of the intruder got revealed. I sank to my knees, thinking about the cops that showed up and how I thought it was odd that they didn't put on their siren or come with an ambulance truck. I remember their shifty eyes as they answered my question. I couldn't believe that Greg tricked me this way. Obviously, those guys were not cops.
Right.
I couldn't believe Greg buried the man out here.
Right.
Perhaps that was why I kept seeing him in my dreams.
I knew something
The
seemed
intruder had
off,
been
bro.
haunting me. I picked up my phone with a shaky hand. "Hello, I have something to report." I refused to be an accomplice to Greg's crime, no matter what.
I knew something seemed off, fam.
"Mom, I want to stay up for Santa." My 3-year-old son kicked his legs in the air as I told him that it was time to sleep. It was Christmas Eve, and aside from the fact that my husband was not at home, I was really tired from all the decorations and cooking because of the friends and family we had over earlier. The whole house was in a mess. The children didn't make my work easier. They spilled food everywhere. Baby, you can't stay up. That's not the fun of it. Santa should be a surprise, okay? Let's go to sleep now, I said, trying to convince him. As much as he tried to be the stubborn type, he was not. He was as tired as I was, and with the look on his face, he needed sleep just as much as I did. I carried him to my chest, where he fell asleep almost immediately. So much for wanting to stay up for Santa, I laughed at him. I placed him in his crib after changing his clothes and walked to my room. It felt empty without my husband, but there was nothing I could do about it. He was in the military and he was away from home for a good cause. I only hoped that he was going to be home very soon. It was not easy without him, especially with a toddler. The image of how the house looked and how much I had to work tomorrow morning to clean up everywhere made me grumble before I finally put off the light in my room. That was all I remembered saying before falling asleep. The sound of broken glass in the house woke me up. I checked the time and it was just a few minutes past 12.
That's not Santa.
I was so tired to get up from bed that my legs would not even try to move.
You tripping.
I ignored it and just hoped that it was not in the house. Or maybe I was just hearing things that were not there.
What?
I slept back with the hope next time I opened my eyes it would be later in the morning. The sound of pots and plates scattering woke me up next and I ignored it again.
Bro!
Whatever was going on down there, it would stop eventually, and I would deal with it in the morning.
She finna piss me
I
off,
checked
bro.
the time again, and it was just a few minutes to 1.
Oh my god.
If it was someone doing all that, it only meant that they had nothing to do on Christmas, and they were probably hungry.
What?
It could also be Jules. That was our dog. He loved to cause trouble sometimes. I turned in bed again.
Are y'all
and
hearing
just
this?
Hoped again that nothing would disturb me.
She's ignoring a burglar in her house.
I looked at the tablet that was connected to the camera in my baby's room, and I saw him sleeping soundly. That put my mind at rest. My baby was fine. I would deal with anything else in the morning when I've had enough rest. I slept off again, pulling one of the pillows on the bed to myself. It felt like I'd not slept for too long when I heard someone crying. I woke up immediately and looked at the tablet again and saw that it was my baby, in tears.
Dude!
I also noticed that there was a shadow of another person in the room. From the shadow, I could guess that it was probably an older person. I saw his hands reaching for my baby in the crib. And that was when I ran out of bed. I ran as fast as my legs could take me. Anything else could happen, but my baby was the most important person in that house. And him being safe only meant that I was safe also. I reached his room.
Now?
And when I tried to open the door, I noticed that it was locked. The intruder locked me out. What on earth does he even want with a 3-year-old? For a moment, I was blank and didn't know what to do.
You gotta ask that
I hit
question?
the door several times with the hope that it was going to open with so much force, but it didn't.
Now he knows you're
How
out there.
strong could doors even be? Whoever you are, leave my baby alone or else you will regret this!
With
I
no
yelled at
type
the
of
top of my
weapon.
voice. Please! I'm begging you! He's my baby! Leave him and take me instead! Please! Don't hurt him! I'm begging you! I could not hold it anymore. I was already in tears. Mommy! I heard Miles say amidst tears. My baby was traumatized. Please, I would give you anything. Just don't hurt him. I said. Anything? The man said.
See?
His voice was hoarse and deep,
See?
but it sounded familiar in a way that I could not put my finger on.
Now he wants some
I
cheeks.
heard the door open, and I stood up to the best and worst surprise of my life. Dan? I said, and immediately jumped on him, not minding the fact that our son was in his arms and in tears.
Her father.
He must have told Miles to pretend to be in
her
tears so
husband.
as to make me scared.
Gotcha.
Could he have been the one that broke the glass and scattered the pots and plates earlier? It was really a surprise gone wrong. I hugged him tightly, not letting him go. It had been 9 months since I last saw him, and him being here just completes Christmas for me, for him, and for Miles. Miles was really happy to have his dad back. The smile on his face was everything I lived for every day. I also saw the joy on Dan's face. He had missed us as much as we missed him. No one wanted to catch any sleep anymore, not even Miles. Dan stayed up reading stories to him for about 2 hours before he let sleep finally take over. I watched in admiration as Dan put him back into his bed. I have missed you so much. I'm so glad to be back home. Why's the house such a mess? He said. I'd explain everything later. Right now, I just need sleep.
So that wasn't
I
him.
said, before I pulled him towards our room. I was so sure that I was going to sleep better with him by my side. We were almost in the room when I heard the shattering of glass again. I looked at Dan, who was already in a fighting position. I guess being in the military only meant that you had to be ready.
Right.
Dan moved stealthily, and I followed suit. I was scared to a stiff point, but my husband was around, and I could trust that he was going to keep everyone safe. We saw a figure who moved around in the living room, and I was about to scream when Dan put on the light. Tanny? She was holding a gun at me. Tanny was my best friend, and the one who was there for me during Dan's absence. She yelled at me, asking why I got to keep Dan for myself.
Oh my God.
Just so you know, Dan and I have been sleeping together in those months he didn't come home, and I don't know why he chose you. The blood drained from my face, and I stared at Dan.
She's not
His
telling
guilty
the truth.
face confirmed it.
Oh
and
my
tears streamed down my
God.
face.
How many twists are going to be in this story?
That was the last thing I said before Tanny shot me, and my world went blank. I survived the shot to my chest by a narrow escape.
What?
It's been 3 years since Dan betrayed me, and I plan to be single forever.
Bro, hope your 2022 is awesome. You too, Broccoli. Bro, that last story had so many M. Night Shyamalan twists to it, bro. Like, fam. You're laying in bed, you hear glass breaking, you hear pots and pans shuffling around, and you say you'll deal with it tomorrow. What? Bro, if I hear glass breaking in my house, well, if I hear glass breaking in my apartment, I'm immediately getting up, I'm going in this nightstand, and I'm getting that Nina. We about to be on some Scooby-Doo shit. We got a mystery to solve. We finna walk all around this apartment to see what that noise was and see if there was a legitimate reason for that noise to occur. Right? That's the first thing. It was your husband. He was off doing his military stuff. Okay, cool. Now, the second time he's home, y'all so happy to be back together as a family, you hear glass break again. Your husband, it wasn't your husband who broke the glass the first time. So I'm going to assume it was Tanny, or whatever her name was, broke the glass looking for him. Once he got home, I guess he drove his car home, and she saw that, so she broke in again. And you get shot because your husband or boyfriend, whatever he was, wanted to trick off, and you're the one who got shot. Bro, what kind of Christmas was that? You said that the family being back together made Christmas all the much better, just to find out that your significant other tricked on you with a girl that's not even half as attractive as you are? Why is that a thing? Like, somebody tell me that in the comment section. When dudes cheat, half the time they're cheating on their girl or on their wife with a woman that's not even as attractive as she is. Like, if you're gonna cheat, the person you cheat with needs to be levels above where your significant other is. Whether it's in the body, the face, preferably both. Like, she was fat, she was sloppy. Oh boy was tricking off, like, while he was in the military. So, she was still getting the business, but he was just settled down with you. And Tanny, overweight girl, was the side chick. Come on, fam. Like, that story had so many twists to it. That shit's crazy to me. The second story, bro, come on, man. Your husband has a double life. That's the first time I've ever seen someone bring a knife to a gunfight and win. And his aim was so precise. It looked like old boy hit him like right dead in the heart. Like, I thought like after he threw the knife, old boy was gonna, as he's falling back, he was gonna just pop old boy, but that's not how it went. Those weren't real cops. And all that sounded staged. And bro, like, these stories, like, especially this last one, all had like a crazy twist to them, right? And I really don't understand like why these things happen. But the first story with the 3 kids, they said it was an M3. Bro, that looked like a Chevy Cruze. The way that the headlights were designed, the way the body was designed, and the way that at least the side of the taillights were designed. From the headlights to the taillights, it looked like a Chevy Cruze, not an M3. But whatever. But here's the thing though, right? The last story, I can't get that off my mind, fam. Like, how do you hear glass break and you hear pots and pans shuffling around and you don't have no sense of urgency? Even when she was running to her son's room after she looked at the baby monitor, saw that shadow figure reaching for her son. Y'all saw her face, it was straight. She didn't have no sense of urgency in her face. The first story, yeah, y'all definitely hit somebody and killed them, and I guess that was the ghost haunting y'all and overheating the controllers, turning the TV off, the face that was in the TV, all that. But dude in the second story, that got me. Like, how dare you come home while I'm trying to steal from your house? Yes, how dare we come to our house where we pay mortgage? What? All of my Kool-Aid is gone now. Man, that cup was like up to here. Alright, I gotta go re-up. But we're gonna end this video. Love the stories. The creepy voice in the first story, that was more funny than scary. I don't know if that's what he was going for, but the narration was interesting with that one. Otherwise, I like these stories. I love those M. Night Shyamalan type twists, like in that last story. So shouts out to Broccoli Animations. I told you, brother, you was gonna be on the channel again. Liked it. Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Leave likes, comments, shares, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon. I want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, stay humble, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.